Hello and welcome to today's SGIA webinar, Changing Landscape for Foil and UV Coating Decorating Options. My name is Dan Marks. I'm SGIA's Director of Content Development, and I'll be the moderator for today's program. On behalf of SGIA, I'd like to welcome you and let you know our webinar system allows you to ask questions through your computer. So if you have questions at any time, even now, feel free to submit them and we'll get to them at the end of the formal presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Jeff Peterson, from the Foil and Specialty Effects Association. We're delighted to have him here, and this is sort of a command performance of presentation he did at the 2018 SGI Expo back in October. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jeff. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. And welcome everybody to the webinar today. As Dan mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of the Foil and Specialty Effects Association. Many know us as FSEA. What we do as an association is really try to educate both our members, who are those who are involved in the processes of foil, UV coating, lamination, die cutting, and other finishing and specialty effect types of technologies, educate them on the latest, and then we also spend part of our time educating the graphic arts and graphic design communities on the benefits of using foil, the benefits of using metallic finishes, UV coating, specialty coatings, and so forth. So we're kind of a two-pronged type of organization, and we do many things in those areas. We'll touch on some of that as we get started today. So today, here's a little overview of what we'll talk about. We want to talk a little bit about how the landscape for decorating on print has changed in recent years. Then we're going to get into the digital decorating options, coatings and foils, which is a newer portion of what has been going on out there in the landscape. Talk a little bit about sheet-fed cold foil. It's not brand new, but it has seen an increase in popularity in recent years. Development of specialty UV coatings, and how a lot of this has helped spawn even more use for more conventional foil stamping and embossing techniques. And touch on how printers that are out there now, with a lot of this difference in landscape, how they need to evaluate what they're doing and bringing some of these types of decorating processes in-house or partner with a print trade type of finisher. And then I want to tell everybody about a study that we've put together. It's not brand new now, but it's fairly new, white paper that we have on the impact of high visibility enhancements. So how has the landscape for decorating changed today? You know, not a long time ago, sheet-fed foil decorating was really limited to doing it offline on a press like a Kluge press. Many of you on here may know what a Kluge is, may know what a larger Bobst or Geets press might be. Those types of presses were really your option for adding foil. And then on offline offline coatings, you were really limited to doing just spot or matte type of coating decorating. But today things have changed a lot. Foil is now applied through digital processes, which we're going to talk about shortly, cold foil processes, and then there's the conventional method too. So there's, today printers or print buyers or those who are involved in the design have a lot of different ways of adding metallic enhancements or specialty coatings to their printed products, where that wasn't the case just, there wasn't much of this available 7, 8, 10, 15 years ago. Your choices are very limited. With specialty coatings, there is all kinds of different things that are out there. We're going to touch on that later as well, from raised UVs, the glitter, soft touch, which is very, very popular, as many of you would know, on using it with coating or using it with lamination, and then how these coatings can be applied through digital or offline screen coating. This is something that, excuse me, whoops. I'm getting ahead of myself. Move this out of the way so I can read this all. Something I found in whattheythink.com. Many of you probably get that on your email. This was an article that ran a few months ago. I thought it was very interesting that a recent study in InfoTrends estimates the market value for enhanced digital printing is about $917 million in just the U.S. and Western Europe, and estimates a compound annual growth of 14%, reaching $1.3 billion by next year in 2020. So you can see by this that enhancing just the digital print side, there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential growth in that area. There we go. Okay, so let's talk a little more about digital decorating and what can be done with from the digital side. Some of the common types of digital decorating equipment that's on the market today, some of you have probably heard of the MGI jet varnish equipment or the Scodix equipment. So what is done with those technologies from a basic standpoint is they're using digital inkjet technology that's used in digital, in digital printing to put down a clear polymer type of coating on the printed sheet, so they can enhance something that's already printed in 4-color CMYK. It can then go into one of these types of machines, and it can be enhanced with a clear spot coating. And what's really interesting and cool is that they can raise that coating through the digital inkjet process and raise it in certain areas and create really a kind of clear embossed look to the piece that, touchy, that the touch and the texture is very interesting to those who receive it. This shows here on this slide that the different levels you can build up. So it can build up all, fairly high, all the way down to a 2D spot UV, all the way up to this high 3D level. And then it's cured through usually a UV LED or a UV process. It's cured. Now, what happens with foil with these types of digital machines is they put down that clear polymer and it's used as an adhesive. The foil roll goes over that area, and then it's then applied, and where that adhesive is down on the sheet, the foil sticks. Then the rest of the foil goes off and rewinds. So the real interesting thing with this type of process compared to a more conventional foil or even a cold foil is that you can put down the adhesive and have that depth and raised area, and then when the foil goes down, it stays raised. So you have what looks to be an embossed type of look to the foil, and there is no embossing. There's nothing on the backside of the sheet, and you get a raised foil look to the piece. So very interesting and a different cool way of utilizing the metallic foil. I kind of touched on this, but here are some of the machinery options that are out there that does this type of digital decorating. The MGI Jet Varnish 3D series that can do both digital foil encodings on the machine. The Scodix Ultra series, which can also do digital foil encodings. Kurz offers, and actually it's being sold by Brandon Kluge, their Kurz digital metal liner series, which actually just does the digital foil, and rather than use the polymer-based adhesive, they're using a toner adhesive, and then the foil sticks to that, creating the metallic foil look. Duplo also has a digital coating machine, the DDC 810. So those are some of the things on the market today where that are doing this type of digital process. Let's talk now a little bit about cold foil. And this is just kind of a statement about digital foil kind of versus cold foil, where digital foil really is best for shorter and medium-sized runs for like direct mail, brochures, maybe small, one thing I always say for the digital coating, or the foil, like tent, table tent type of setups at restaurants. I mean, awesome for that, where people are right in front of it. They can touch and feel it. Usually shorter runs, so it makes sense for digital. Things like that are great for the digital type of enhanced process. Cold foil, on the other hand, is suited usually more for longer runs because it's put on a larger, like Komori or Heidelberg type of press, and the foil and the printing's all done in line. So it's an excellent choice for folding cartons, labels, could be large volume direct mail, magazine covers. Those are some good potential applications for cold foil. So this is a quick little drawing that sort of shows you how the cold foil process works. If you look at if you're facing your screen on the far right, you can see the first unit of a printing press, like a Heidelberg or a Komori. The first unit station, they put down an adhesive. Again, it's kind of a clear adhesive with a printing plate where you want the foil to stick. And then the next unit actually is the cold foil unit. The cold foil unit that goes on the second station of the printing press. And then they apply the foil. It nips through and it sticks to wherever that adhesive was put down with the first station and with a regular printing plate. Once that is done and the cold foil is applied, it goes through a regular CMYK 4 different stations to put down the 4-color process. And then on this one, it shows where you could apply a varnish after that, which a lot of times recommended. And so from the start to the beginning, you get an entire foil metallic look to your piece, all in line on one, on one pass on a printing press. So why has there been recent growth with cold foil? Yes, cold foil technology has been around a long time. It's been used in the label industry, narrow web on flexo presses for a long time, but it really it's become even more popular there, and then now it's become a lot more popular on sheet fed applications, really due to the foil companies, the foil manufacturers creating better, faster releasing foils, and there's better adhesives out there. Because one of the big problems was just a few years ago is that companies, printers, commercial printers or carton companies didn't want to put a cold foil unit on their machine because it would run the machine would have to run at way too slow a speed for it to apply the foil and then print over the top. But now there's a lot faster releasing foils where they can run the printing press at much faster speeds and apply the foil in print without decreasing their production speeds too much. And again, there's better adhesives that are put down in that first unit of the press so that the foil sticks and doesn't come off when it's applied. A lot of that's better. It's cured. LED has been introduced in recent years, UV LED curing, which helps secure the foil to the sheet as well. Cold foil modules that are out there, the technology has continued to get better with it as well. Some of the main manufacturers of cold foil units that go on a press include Eagle Systems, Compact Foilers, and Vinfoil, which is represented by Matic here in the States. If you need more information on those companies, feel free to get hold of me, and I'll be glad to get you information. So again, what are some of the advantages of cold foil? I kind of touched on that it can be done all in line. So regular, more conventional foil stamping, you print the piece on a printing press, and it goes on a separate run to add the foil or the embossing. So by doing it in line, it eliminates the hot stamping dies because you're just using a printing blanket to apply the adhesive, and then the foil sticks to that. It's really a really good replacement in a lot of different ways for foil board, to utilize cold foil in line versus utilizing a foil board that you would buy and then print over the top of. And one of the big reasons is you can just apply the cold foil where you want the foil rather than a whole sheet that's completely metallic. And that allows the printer not to have to use an opaque white ink. And those who might have some background with that, at least everybody I talk to says opaque white ink is not fun to work with. It's hard to get it to go over the top of the metallic finish. A lot of times 2 passes have to be done. So you eliminate that with cold foil versus foil board. If you're foiling on plastic, if you're doing a hot stamping process, you have to worry about the heat and the melting of a plastic film. This comes into play a lot of times with labels, plastic labels. So cold foiling eliminates that because, again, it's a cold process. So you don't worry about the plastics, the film being affected by that heat. And another potential use with cold foil is cast and cure, and I'm going to touch on that here as well in a minute. Limitations of cold foil. All of these have limitations. There is a higher cost of foil usage versus a more standard foil stamping. So if you're doing a huge area foil, hey, cold foil is great. If you're only doing a small area on a let's say a folding carton or something like that, and you only want a small area of foil, it may be actually more economical to have that foil stamped or hot stamped. It's not as suited for drier stocks. As you can see, it adhesive goes down. So if you use a real dry porous stock, that adhesive is going to go into that stock. However, there are some new adhesives and some new technology out there. I know Eagle Systems, who's one of our FSCA members, has done some really nice work where they're applying cold foil on dry stock. So it can be done. It's just not quite as easy to work with as a coated stock. With cold foil, you can't do embossing or a combination of foil and embossing as you can on a more conventional foil stamping project. And there is a little difference in brilliance, although that is improved tremendously. And quite honestly, I have that on there, but there are some people that will tell me that the brilliance is really pretty much you can't tell anymore. That's one reason why sheet fed cold foil has grown a lot. 10 years ago, you would have saw a pretty big difference between a cold foil laid down and something that's hot foil stamped. Today, it's improved so much that you can't hardly tell. So that's not as much of a limitation any longer. I touched on cast and cure. So what cast and cure is it's a process where a film is used. It's a clear holographic film. You can see a holographic pattern in the film. That is micro etched into the film itself on a roll. And then that roll is put onto the printing press, just like in the cold foil process. And then it's nipped. At first, the adhesive goes down, then the roll of cast and cure film goes over the top. It's then cured as the film is on the top. You can see in this slide here that the curing lamps are on the very top there, and so the film and the adhesive is going through that. It cures, comes out to the left there, and it's nipped. The cast and cure film is nipped away, and on the other side, you actually get a piece, and usually it's used to you'll have a printed image, and then it's put right over the top of it, and you have a clear holographic pattern that shows up over the top of your printed image. It's a really cool look, man. Hope maybe many of you have seen this type of thing, but one of the really cool parts of it is that it's not like hot foil or even cold foil where the foil comes off of the carrier and lays down on the printed piece. It's the casting film actually creates that look, and then it can be rewound and it can be used again, because the cast and cure film, there's nothing that's actually being applied. It's micro embossed. The image, the holographic image, is micro embossed into the coating, and then it cures. So it's a pretty cool process. If you have any other questions on that, please get a hold of me. I can tell you more about it. So again, this is kind of touching on that for print finishers that are out there, that are a lot of our members of FSCA, that cold foil is can be a cost savings over foil board. There's a wide variety of colors and patterns, holographic, that can be used. Again, it eliminates the opaque white ink. Quicker availability than foil board in many cases, especially if you want anything different than silver. And here's one big thing here, that cold foil and hot foil is a better sustainable choice than a foil laminated board, which includes the plastic film on the top of the board. On cold foil and hot foil processes, there is no actual film that's left on the piece. The film is just the carrier, and the foil then lays onto the printed piece. So it does create a more sustainable choice for the printer or for the end user. So let's talk a little bit about UV coatings. Specialty UV coatings has really seen a lot of growth in the last several years, with all kinds of different types of coatings that are out there, and they can be applied through the digital inkjet technology, which we've already talked about, or an offline screen press like a Sakurai. Many of you may know or understand what a Sakurai press is, where they can do screen printing, but they also can use a Sakurai press just to put down like spot UV and profile embossed UV coatings. So what's the advantage of digital inkjet coatings, which again we've touched on with the coatings in the foil, that there is no tooling needed. There are no film or screens that need to be used, as there would be an offline screen UV coating. And you can do a larger buildup, so that one graph that I showed you that showed the different buildups, you have more ability to make that bigger and higher, more of a 3D effect than you can with offline screen, although you can do a lot with offline screen. It's quicker setup, good for small, medium runs. And the one thing we hadn't touched on is that you actually can personalize each printed piece when you're doing something digital versus just conventional offline screen. But the advantages of screen coatings are much faster speed. So if you have very long runs and you want to do a spot specialty raised UV, if you have fairly long runs, you're going to be much better off with a screen coater. You have more flexibility with the types of coatings that you can apply with the screen versus the digital. And when you're in much longer runs, your cost per piece are going to be dramatically less. Even though you do have the screen costs and some of those tooling costs, if you're doing 100,000 pieces, that can be spread out between those pieces. But if you're doing 500 pieces, then you can't spread that cost out, and then digital becomes a much, much better option. Here's a list of some of the more popular types of special UV coatings on the market today. Most popular that you see on a lot of pieces done digitally or screen is a raised emboss effect with a UV coating. You can do all kinds of textures. One of the interesting ways of using a specialty UV is glitter. You can actually put glitter into the UV. I'm sure many of you have purchased a Christmas card or a greeting card that has glitter on it, and what happens? You buy it, and then it starts coming off on your hands, and you get it on your hands and everywhere. Well, glitter UV gives you a very similar look and eliminates that because the glitter is within the UV, and then it's cured in the UV coating itself, and so you can get a similar look and get rid of that dusty glitter that comes off in your hands. There's fluorescent coatings out there, scratch-off coatings, glow-in-the-dark. We had talked before, soft touch is a huge thing on the market today. A lot of people are loving soft touch on their brochures, on their all kinds of magazine covers, all kinds of different applications. Thermochromic, which is something which is kind of like, I always relate it to like the Coors Light bottle, that when it turns a certain temperature, it turns blue on the label. That's a thermochromic type of effect. And then there's gloss and matte contrast where you can do strike through. That's an inline UV process where the gloss strikes through and then the rest of the coating on like a cover of a magazine is just textured or a brochure. That's another option that's out there with specialty coatings. So with all of these different things, really what's happened with digital out there, especially like the digital foil on a Scodix or an MGI jet varnish, on the growth of cold foil, what that's done, a lot of our members at FSEA have been concerned that all these different new metallic processes is going to hurt my business. Well, what we've seen for the most part is that it hasn't. It's actually grown a lot of our members' business, even if they're just doing conventional foil, because it's just out there more. There's a lot of metallic processes on the market today, and it's just growing the attention to the processes. And there's just a lot of applications. All of them really have a fit. So if you're wanting to use foil, if you're wanting to have embossing involved with your project, hey, more standard foil is going to be your best choice. There's also a lot more flexibility with conventional foil stamping with the stock type. There's certainly going to be more brilliance on drier, porous stocks, and you just have a lot of flexibility on coated, uncoated, recycled stocks using more conventional foil processes. Another thing you can do with conventional foil is refractive, and I want to talk about that here for a minute, refractive foil stamping. So with refractive foil stamping, a lot of people get mixed up with how that's done or what's done with it, but it's all within the die. It's all within the engraving. So on your screen here shows you an example of a refractive stamp. And so that's just a regular orange colored foil, metallic foil. In those patterns that you see, the dots, and then that ray effect that's within that, that's showing within that R on the screen, that is actually all in the engraving. And there's several of our FSCA die suppliers who can make refractive engravings like this, and I just think it's a great way to showcase and utilize foil is through using refractive dyes. They're not that much more expensive than regular dyes. It also is a good thing, you know, instead of embossing. I think I have a page here with some advantages. Yeah, so some of the advantages here of refractive is that it can add that detail without having to actually emboss the image, create the punch on the back side of your sheet. When you move it around, it creates an illusion of movement, and it's just it's an inexpensive alternative to holographic, and really an inexpensive way of increasing your, you know, really increasing the use and the exposure that you want with your foil product. So let's talk, time-wise here, let's talk a little bit about printers. Now today, with a lot of the digital processes that are out there, a lot of the digital choices and the cold foil choices, you know, they need to make decisions on how they're going to offer this to customers. You know, it's still, the digital processes are still in their infancy, and from my standpoint, quite honestly, and kind of the standpoint that we take as the Foil and Specialty Effects Association, is that partnering right now is a really good way to look at it. And that is that utilizing, we have several of our FSCA members who have, which a lot of them are trade print finishers, who have invested in a digital foil / specialty coating equipment. And those people are out there to partner with. And the suggestion is to start with this. You may get to a point where it may make sense to have that type of process in-house, but I think partnering with somebody that's doing it and can do it for you is not a bad idea. Another InfoTrend study showed that and actually I think maybe the same one that I had referenced to earlier, that the low number of digital jobs, there's a low number of digital jobs that have special effects. So if you're involved in digital, it may be that it makes sense to partner with somebody that has that ability. And another primer study that also suggested that printers not overinvest in foil or even die cutting equipment and consider partnering with print finishers. Larger continuous runs may justify foil coating purchases, either digital or even offline, if it's regular work that's done on a regular basis. Lastly, here, the last thing I want to do, but then maybe we would have some, if there's any questions, is talk a little bit about a study that we did several months ago with Clemson University in their packaging department there at Clemson. We did a study in partnership with them, and we wanted to observe the effects of foil on a carton sitting on a regular shelf in Walmart or a grocery store, that type of thing. And so what we did is Clemson has these special eye tracking glasses, and we got some volunteers to come in, 180 participants that put on these eye tracking glasses, and then we sent them down the aisle. And what we used was a fake brand that we developed and designed of a single-serve coffee packaging, and we included that single-serve made-up brand with a really cool foil headline on it, and we included that on the shelf with several very popular brands. So it was sitting there with Maxwell House, all different kinds of different K-Cup type brands. And then we analyzed the non-foil brands against popular brands and foil brands against, and then the foil brand, made-up brand against popular brands. And what we found, and again, this is available if anybody on here would like a copy of it, but what we found through the study to generalize it, is that the time of first fixation, meaning that when somebody went down that aisle with those eye tracking glasses on, their first fixation, the first thing they saw, was much faster with the foil packaging than it was the others. And we also found out and gained information that foil stamp packaging can increase purchasing decisions in the study. So we really found some great information that can be utilized by brand owners, brand marketers, by our members who are trying to sell more foil. So it's a really, really great study that we do have available now through FSCA. Okay, I think that is the end of what I have here, and I need to spread this out, but Dan, I don't know if there's any questions that you would want to ask at this point.
Yeah, in terms of, I think for a lot of foil stamping applications, in terms of packaging, we're kind of looking at sort of higher end products. First of all, is that a misstatement? And second of all, if it's not, are there some areas that are really hot, like in the use of those products? Like I think of like high-end electronics or like phones, cosmetics, that kind of thing. What's trending right now?
Well, you just mentioned cosmetics. Cosmetics is definitely an area where we have a lot of high usage of foil, and that's both on the cartons themselves, or even on the product, directly on some of the cosmetic products. It kind of turns into using foil on plastics, which actually another part of my company gets involved in. But yeah, cosmetics is definitely an area that continues to utilize a lot of metallic finishes. And you made the question: is it really just for luxury types of products? It's been in both. It's really been used in both areas. One of the areas where a metallic finish is very popular, and most of you probably have seen that, toothpaste. The toothpaste aisle is full of metallic finish look to the carton. So there's a product that isn't considered, of course, a luxury type product that utilizes foil metallic finishes to attract the customers. So it can be, I would put it this way: there's applications like toothpaste and as we talked about with the single serve coffee, that aren't real high-end use.
Mm-hmm.
And those are really, and then the use of those types of processes are being used to attract the customer on the shelf. So that is one reason that foil is used. Another reason is, as you said, it's used to create more value, what seems to be value to the product. So that's where some of the luxury type brands will want to use a metallic finish or foil.
Okay. And I know you covered some of the digital decorating technologies out there, particularly foil and otherwise. I know that those technologies kind of move people into the capabilities of digital printing, which is, shorter runs and the ability to do versioning. In your experience, are there a lot of people working in this sort of customization area where they're doing the one-to-one consumer-focused decoration using these technologies?
So are you meaning where they're using this for prototyping type of
No,
work?
I'm thinking, let's say a finished product, and just as an example, it has the person's name on it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Personalization, where they can do a personalization.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, that's certainly one of the big advantages. And yes, we see some definite applications where, and really the coating, not as much the digital coating, but digital foil, where they can put down the adhesive and they can personalize every piece.
Mm-hmm.
That's become popular. Direct mail is a great example of that.
Sure.
One of our members this past year for the holidays did a holiday card, and everyone was personalized to the company in metallic foil.
Right. Very eye-catching. And then looking just a few years ahead, are there any technologies on the horizon that you'd like to tell us about?
Really, I think what you're going to see is that this is really kind of goes along with digital in general, that, digital printing continues to make itself or put itself into some different markets in different areas, or that longer runs, longer runs are more feasible all the time. As digital technology increases, it's going to decrease that gap between offset printing, other types of printing processes in digital, and there really is no reason that's not going to be the same from the decorating side. So what is limited to fairly short runs now on digital decorating equipment, that's going to increase. Those runs will be able to increase to larger runs as time goes on.
Okay.
I think that's where you'll see change.
Okay. And are there any special effect coatings applicable for shrink packaging? And if so, what level of shrink are they capable of managing?
That's a good question, but I don't know as much on that area because most of what we deal with is on the paper,
Mm-hmm.
On the paper side, printed
more of a stable
cartons, labels, and so forth. However, I do know there's the ability to apply some specialty coatings to some things like shrink sleeves. So I would imagine again, I'm not as involved directly with that part, but I would imagine that you're going to see more of that because there's more equipment out there that can do it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the presentation today.
Sure.
And for those of you who joined us today, thanks for being with us. We hope you found the presentation to be informative. We have ongoing series of webinars scheduled generally for every Tuesday. They're free. They're at 2 p.m. Eastern, and they're here for you to understand technologies and make the best decisions for your business. Before we close out, I'd like to urge you to register now for Printing United, North America's largest printing-focused event. It'll be taking place October 23rd through 25th. In Dallas, and we hope to see you there. So with that, have a great day, and we will see you online again soon. Bye-bye.